A new week, a new era for No Vacancy Live. Anthony, how are you?
A new year, and it's so smooth.
So smooth. Nothing is going wrong this year.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey, everybody. I am, of course, Glenn Hausman with the one, the only, the incredible Mr. Anthony Melchiori here. Anthony, so great to see you. Happy Monday. How are you doing today, my friend?
Happy Monday. I have so many thoughts on my head, but I know what you're thinking. Anthony, keep all your thoughts to yourself, so I will.
That's right, because maybe we'll be able to have a good conversation if you keep all of your thoughts to yourself. Maybe not all of them today, Anthony. I do want to say, please check out bestbuy.com/hospitality to learn more and connect with dedicated hospitality experts who can help you out there with things like IT consulting. Maybe you never really thought about them, but yes, they can help you with IT consulting, figuring out what all your needs are. I mean, let's be honest, folks are going to be focused more on the guest room when they come and stay in your hotel, and Best Buy can help you with the right IT components that you need to face this brand new era. Go check them out at bestbuy.com/hospitality. And also, Anthony, what about our friends over at Ecotech? They're back today to support us for a little while. They re-signed up as an advertiser. Really happy to see Ecotechnology over here with their incredible disposable garbage cans.
Yeah, they've taken over my house at this point. I have one on one side of my desk, one on the other side of my desk. It seems like all I'm doing is emptying out or putting in the garbage these waste paper baskets. So it's very interesting. And listen, like I said, I'm going to open a hotel soon, and I will have them everywhere in my hotel.
Excellent. And be sure to go to eco-techwaste.com. Mention No Vacancy Program. Get yourself a discount. They will increase guest satisfaction. They will help your staff be more productive and save you money. Anthony, today is January 11th, 2021, and today is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Wow. Time for all of us to think a little bit about it. So AHOA, another organization, said wear blue. I was wearing a red shirt before. I realized I don't have any short sleeve blue shirts, but I did want to put on a blue shirt for this to make sure that we all know that this is still a critical crisis affecting the hospitality industry, even if we've been focused on other issues. Right, Anthony?
Yeah, and people outside the industry may not understand what that means. Like, how is the hotel industry involved in sex trafficking?
Great.
Well, it's very transient, right? So you're bringing people across straight lines. You're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, whether it be sex trafficking, whether it be human trafficking, whether it be drug dealing, whatever it is in the hotels. Unfortunately, we're a pretty easy target because you come in, you give us your credit card, you give us an ID, and you're on your way. What you do in that room, who you bring in that room, we don't know, and we're really not allowed to go in and start searching your room with no warrant. So it is a very easy target, and the big brands are now really focused on it. I think they haven't really focused on it maybe they should have 20, 30 years ago, because we didn't realize, and now with technology and everything that's going on, they've really tripled down their efforts, and big kudos to them. But, even if you're in a hotel and you see something strange, you can notify the authorities or notify the front desk. But yes, the industry has really taken a very aggressive approach.
They've done a really good job with all of that. And remember, don't let your perception affect the reality of the situation. This isn't something that only happens at lower end hotels that just charge a few bucks a night. This happens in all strata of the hospitality industry, from top-notch luxury hotels all the way up through the hospitality.
This happened in 5-star hotels in New York. I know stories about it. I've seen it. It happens everywhere.
It happens everywhere. And that's why we all need to be cognizant. Anthony, in September, I was fortunate enough to do an in-person speaking engagement for the Westchester Hospitality Association. And at the property I was at, in the bathroom, they had a notice about human trafficking and a phone number that person could call. I like that clever solution, because at some point, if somebody is in that situation, they may have a chance to be alone for a few seconds and be able to do something about it.
And also comes down to training. Right. See something, say something. And most front desk people, we're a great target because we're about service. So we're about looking past anything that looks strange, unfortunately, sometimes. And we just, what can we do for you? What can we do for you? What can we do for you? And I think it's just a lot of training.
Right. It absolutely is. So be sure to check out, for example, ahoa.com. Our friends over there do free training and they will give you the resources that you need to help you and your team be successful. All right. Moving on. Anthony, I love capitalism and I know you're a big capitalist too. So interesting thing that's happening in the news. Some major companies such as Marriott have decided that they are not going to provide any political donations to anybody that voted or created an objection last week on Capitol Hill to the election results. That means Marriott will not give Ted Cruz money. They will not give Hawley money. They will not give 140 something representatives any money in the coming year because of that action. What do you think?
Well, this is what I think. First of all, I don't like being labeled anything, including a capitalist. What I am is I'm an American, and I believe in our system of government. And I believe you have a right to protest, and I believe you have a right to open a small business. And I believe when the government tells you not to open a small business, you have a right to get funds. So I'm a lot more complicated than just a capitalist. Okay, I believe on a lot of social programs, and I believe in less taxes, less government. But it is I'm certainly not in any party. I will tell you that. I am an independent as they come. So I think it's a great idea. And they will be protested against, and people will say they're wrong. At the end of the day, this is what we have to remember as Americans. Courts has said it was a fair election. That's it. So if you want to protest that, you're allowed to. If you want to talk about that, you're allowed to. If you want to support your candidate, you're allowed to. What you're not allowed to do is storm the Capitol based on a false accusation that hasn't been proven. And I think Marriott is standing behind that, and I applaud them.
Yes. So are some other major corporations. We'll see about that. I'd be curious just to see what you folks feel about that particular issue in the comments section. Okay. So our guest, Alex Cabañas, is the CEO of Benchmark Hotels. They're a major independent lodging company. That's an awesome management company with amazing properties throughout the country. He'll be on in just 1 second. He was having a little bit of a tech glitch. We're working that out right now. But Anthony, they are in the middle of reinventing the Grand Plaza Hotel in St. Pete, doing an overall renovation on there. And here I am right now. What a cool piece of architecture is this?
That looks gorgeous. You know, that looks a little bit like that hotel in California, that 5-star hotel. Oh, that I did a show on. It's escaping me as soon as I start talking about it. It looks like this. It looks like the same. It's not. This is a lot nicer, but
Right.
it looks beautiful. You just want to be there. It looks like you just want to be there.
Yeah, it really does. And what I really like about that, it's more of that older, I'll say 1970s era architecture. And they're going to probably reinvent the whole property for great 2020 something 21st century audience. That's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and what's interesting, 50s, 60s, and 70s architecture is really easy to implement into today's kind of simplicity, because a lot of that architecture is about the architecture. It's not about the design. It's about the building. It's about the structure. And the simplicity of today allows colors and allows less fabrics and more organic materials to really take over the property, though you have this beautiful structure. Whereas before, I think in the 80s and 90s, we built these very clean structures and just, made it very ornate.
Right. So, interestingly enough, what do you think about the way that a lot of hotels are built and constructed today? Because as we know, you're focusing on a major project right now that's going to be in Southern California compared to the size, structure, and architectural design of hotels from 30, 40 years ago.
Well, they were a lot more expensive. That's for sure. And we're taking a hotel that was built 80 years ago and redoing it. But it depends on what you're building, right? This is a building that you have to concentrate, the one behind you. You have to concentrate on the architect, and you have to put money in it, and you have to really do it the right way. And then there's, of course, the construction of today that you can build a hotel in 35 seconds in a parking lot. And all of a sudden you have a 200-room hotel that looks like every other hotel. And there's a need for that. There's a need financially for that, for the banks to get their money back quicker. There's a need for a guest because they want it simple. So I'm a big proponent of these cookie cutter hotels for investment as well as to stay. But when you're talking about a structure like that, or you're talking about a destination property, you're talking about a whole level different construction. You're talking about, because your construction really is starting to appeal to your 4 or 5 star guests. So if you know you're building a cookie cutter hotel, you're concerned about soundproofing, but it's not your number one priority. If you're building a luxury hotel destination, somebody's going to spend 7 to 10 days, soundproofing is a critical point. You know, the way the sunlight hits the pool is a critical point. The way the sound at the pool gets into somebody's room at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is a critical point. So the structure, the architecture, everything becomes really, really important.
I think when you say when the sun comes in the room, I think of myself at the Luxor in Las Vegas. And when you're on a certain side of the building at a certain time of day with the windows being angled, boom, it like focuses all of that light in your room. So you pretty much have to have the shades closed or else you're going to boil up.
Yeah, and a lot of buildings are now building where they take that into account and they use it to heat the building. They use it for being more green. So there's a lot into it. You know, there's construction, design, and architecture. I think if you look at it 20, 30 years ago and to today, is obviously the foundation's the same, but it's just the technology has allowed it to go so much. I mean, if you look in New York City and you see there's one hotel or one building that literally looks like it's a cube. It looks like it's maybe one Lego cube and it goes all the way up like 100 floors and it swings. And I was in the architect's office and I was like, how much is that swing? And he says, well, it swings about 22 inches either way. 22 inches. 2 feet.
Oh God. Oh my God. That is a lot. I remember the world.
So they were able to do that with obviously technology and understanding what they need to understand.
Dangerous. It's absolutely safe. It's built into the building. In fact, if you're talking about construction, they want it to be flexible. They want it to be able to.
That's the whole point. The reason it goes 22 inches and not 23 inches because they don't want it to go 23 inches. The reason it goes 22 inches, not 21 inches, is because they don't want it to go 21 inches.
Right. All right. We've got ourselves Alex Cabanas, the CEO of Benchmark Hospitality. Alex Cabanas, welcome to the show. How are you today, sir?
I'm good.
All right. Sorry.
That's what we did. Talking about the technology problems before we even got started.
I know. And of course, the irony is he looked perfect. Everything was fine. And as soon as we went on air, of course, that's when the problems always happen. Alex, I'd like to start talking with you. Maybe the first thing from you is tell us a little bit about Benchmark so people can understand what you are as a company, and then the particular issue I want to talk with you.
Yeah, well, Glenn, Anthony, thanks for having me on. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. It looks like I'm a little dark, but that may have helped just a little bit, just to twist it. So I had to switch to my laptop. But so Benchmark is a third-party hospitality management company. We like to call ourselves one of the most experiential in the business, mostly independent hotels or soft brand franchise, mostly resort, some urban, 28 states now. Prior to the pandemic, 10,000 employees. So we're in the top 10 to 12 in the third-party hospitality management space, and certainly excited to be on the show.
Yeah, I'm very thrilled to have you here, Anthony.
What's the one thing coming out of this that is going to be different for you guys from a labor standpoint? Was there anything that you're going to be outsourcing? Is there anything that's going to be more streamlined? How does that structure look like 6 months from now?
Yeah, Anthony, our team has done an incredible job going through this crazy time, and that's a question we keep asking ourselves: is, well, what's going to be the permanent change? I think it's hard to know. I do think, and I've heard from most colleagues in my industry, that there is a lot of consideration as to how does housekeeping and general cleaning ultimately change long term. Now, you got to look past, in my mind, you got to look past when this pandemic is done and there are things specific to sanitation requirements that the CDC is looking for that are specific to this particular event. I do think it will change the daily housekeeping requirements. I think the safety and or security of less in-room connectivity, I think, is a positive. I don't think there's anything ultimately wrong with that. I don't like the fact that it will create less jobs in our industry, but I think those jobs will be be moved around within the organization. But that's what we're trying to look at, is how do you change public space housekeeping, in-room housekeeping, and start to make some of those adjustments.
Right. That's really critical. And
One of the things I've been asked, is that my sound or your sound?
it seems like it's you.
How about now? Is that better?
Seems good.
Why don't you ask your question? So I get my
All
sound.
right, so what I want to do is, Alex, one of the things that I find is increasingly challenging is when it comes to politics, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You want to be able to better reflect other people's viewpoints within your workplace. Now, Marriott, as I just mentioned, has taken a definitive stance that they are not going to support any politician that participated in the objections to the election last week at the Capitol immediately after the riots occurred. Some of your staff members will agree with that. Some will not agree with that. It seems like even if you want to be a company that doesn't get involved in politics, you're going to be forced into being a company that deals with politics. How are you negotiating this really treacherous path?
Yeah. So I was listening to you guys talk about it, and I'll say that I'm fortunate that although we're a relatively large organization, we do not have any corporate political contributions, nor have we at any point in our history. That doesn't mean that we don't believe in, support government. I am actually on AHLA's board of directors, so very much involved in advocacy, policy work. You guys were talking about human trafficking, which I am fortunate that our company's never had an instance of human trafficking on our properties, but we do a lot of training on that, and have worked a lot with AHLA's programming around that as well.
Which might explain why you not had that happen, because you're taking those resources seriously.
Yeah. Fortunate that we haven't, and that's just reduced our immediate engagement in it from a publicity standpoint, just simply because we haven't had to deal with it as much in our organization. But we still train on it. Still believe it's a hugely important thing for our industry to train on. But on the political side, we are fortunate that we're not engaged in funding political contributions. Now, that said, I will tell you, the day of this whole insurgency happening at the Capitol, I am home and I'm watching with my family, and my 11-year-old son says to me, "I want to marry a Canadian." He was trying to, I'm not kidding. He was trying to be funny, because that's just my 11-year-old. But I did sit back and I said to myself, geez, what is going on that my 11-year-old son has this thought of concern around the country that welcomed his grandparents. Both my parents are Cuban born. Both came here before the revolution in 57, 59. My dad started our company. And so, my family's benefited tremendously from this country. And here's my 11-year-old son saying he wants to marry a Canadian and trying to be funny. But at the same time, that sat in my gut. So the morning of, right, Glenn, because, you can't ignore it. There was a time in life, and if my father were on this, he'd probably say, just keep politics out of business. Well, you can't do that anymore. So all I said to my entire team, all of our general managers and all of our home office was, I recounted this story of my son, the disturbance that we've all felt over the last, now 72 hours or the 24 hours at that point. And I just said, my son just said that he wanted to marry a Canadian. What could possibly be in his mind that would cause him to think that, knowing how our family has benefited from this country? So I said to the team, I'm going to let this question sit and just say to you all what I said to him, which is, the actions of few do not define a nation, right? They just don't. And so to me, it is just as we as a company defend our culture, our way of life, the value system that we behave upon every single day, there's always going to be bad actors. And you have to be able to manage. That is part of being in a democracy. That is part of being in a country, this free speech. And so, and the second part of that was, we are very fortunate. We're all included in this. We're very fortunate to be in an industry that is very hard to manipulate our product and our service for divisiveness and hate. I mean, we give out hospitality, we give out joy, we give out happiness, we give out vacations, we give out, company meetings. We take care of people. It's pretty tough to manipulate our product for divisiveness and hate. And you know what? That's a blessing. So in the midst of all this, let's heal the world with hospitality. Let's be the ones that are welcoming, that are bringing people together. That's our job. That's what we do.
There's two things I want to say about that. One, the one thing I couldn't stand on either side is once something bad happens, violent happens, they double down on their excuse for the violence. Okay. The second, which is horrible. And the second thing is you saw our Congress and our Senate basically say, hold my beer, we'll be right back. We'll get this under control. And within 6 hours, and when we all woke up, everything was under control again. And that's why our government is different than most governments. That's why we will not become a Venezuela, because our Constitution holds up under strain. Unfortunately, it seems every 200 years we need to test it. So your 11-year-old, although that's a mark on him he'll never forget, he'll understand the history books that our government stood the test of time and the strain of things that really test it and test our Constitution. So on one hand, that day was a mark that is a stain on our history, but also was a great day in the sense that within 6 hours, everything was under control and we were back to feeling like, things were under control. We have a long way to go on both sides, and there's obviously a divided country, but at the end of the day, the only way to come together is we cannot go against the Constitution. You're on mute.
I completely agree with that. But Alex, the challenge is not necessarily this one particular situation, but people have become more polarized, and employees have seen whatever point of view they have become more solidified. So what you're dealing with as somebody who's the CEO of a company is, it seems to me that you have to walk a tightrope, because otherwise you risk offending a certain subset of your employees. How do you make sure all voices are heard within your company while also respecting people that have differing point of views to create an inclusive place instead of something like our society that is being broken down by polarization?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not. Well, I would say it's not
here on No Vacancy Live.
Yeah. It's not easy, Glenn. At the same time, I could say it's not easy and easy at the same time, right? I mean, if you focus on the value system of our organization, focus on, I think, the values that people believe in America in general, I think if you stay away from what I call the poison of comparison, the fact that people are always, there's constant comparison of situations. I mean, all the comparison over the weekend of the attacks on the Capitol and Black Lives Matter protests. Now,
what about it?
Similarities. It's just, why bother with the comparison? They're completely different situations, completely different, events, and we want to compare them as if they are comparable, and I don't believe they are. So I think if you stick to the unity that is promoted in our industry, the fact that our industry is built on serving others, that is fundamental to what we do. It adds a lot of humility and grace to these types of conversations when you're focused on the service of others. So to me, that's the easy part, is if we stay focused on that, then it becomes an easy conversation, because that's what we're here for, right? We're not here for the political debates. We're not here for ourselves first. We are the opposite. We are here for other people first. And we have to put our own particular personal interests aside and serve other people. And if you can't do that, hospitality is probably not the place for you.
That's an awesome point of view. I like
and also, if you want to get your point of view across,
please go on, Anthony.
Is up? Okay. If you want to get your point of view across and you want to win, what you do is you take a breath and you live to fight another day. Tripling down gets you much further away from your mark. And now the people on one side of the aisle are going to have a much harder time getting back into power, as opposed to if they just took a breath and they would have won Georgia and they would have controlled the Senate, and they would have been in a lot better place 4 years from now to get back in the White House. Unfortunately, now there's a constitutional problem, and now that's got to be in the news every day instead of all the people dying and all the vaccines that have to get out that are not working to get out as quickly as they can. And now we're back to where we were. So again, I know in business or in sports, my objective is to win. And sometimes I got to sit down and then stand up stronger. And I think that the way when you break the law, and which happened, a Capitol police officer died, there are consequences. And now, if everybody would just protest the proper way, they've been a lot further along.
Yeah, makes sense, Alex.
There were some great over the weekend that I felt like were meaningful, right? I mean, Mitt Romney in his speech talked about the courage and leadership is truth, right? And I'm not a particular fan of Mitt Romney. It's just I'm a fan of truth. I'm a fan of facts. I joke often that that half the part of the reason that we have so much influence in media is because on a 24-hour day, the amount of actual news, meaning a fact, is maybe an hour. And then there's 23 hours of opinion associated with that one fact. That's not necessarily bad, but you have to separate out the fact from people's opinions. And I'm just a fact guy. I like the factual information. And yes, I like debating that factual information. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger, again, not particular fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger other than his movies when I was a kid, had a great video about the servant leadership in politics, right? And that we really need leaders who are there to serve, who are putting their own particular aspirations and their individual aspirations for the benefit of people. And that's what I do every day. It's what my team does every day. It's what we do in leadership. Those things are needed in every industry. There's no question.
When I was growing up, you didn't know if the newscaster, you had no idea if the newscaster was Republican or Democrat. You can't watch either of the major news networks. You can't watch them. I mean, because they're completely opinion pieces, and I don't want their opinion. I want the facts because I'm smart enough to make up my own decision. So on either side, it's insane of how much is news. Really, there is no news, and there's no news outside of that. What happened, whether it be obviously the insurrection should take all the power of the media right now to really make sure that never happens again. But like on a regular news day, they'll take one thing and they'll talk about that for 2 hours. What happened to what's happening in small town America? What's happening in anything? And just pick a subject. What's happening besides this one thing that you're not going to spend 2 hours? And I hate when whether it be CNN or Fox or the other channels look in the camera and like they want you to like feel their emotion about the subject.
Right.
That's not what news is about. So it's shocking how far it's gone.
That's true. I think the rise of the 24-hour news channel has really changed everything. It used to be very delineated as to what was the news pages and what was the opinion pages. Just open up your local newspaper. It's right there on the page. Editorial board, opinions, and stuff like that. Unfortunately, as a society, we don't seem to have the ability in aggregate to be able to tell truth from fiction, opinion from fact, because it's not clearly delineated on these notions, on these networks. Fox News used to, many years ago, they would have top of the hour and bottom of the hour news breaks, and you could better understand that the rest of it was opinion. A lot of that stuff has gone away, so people are confusing what opinion is versus what fact is. And I think we need some more news literacy training to better understand.
And at the end of the day, and then we should get off politics. I want
to get back to Alex's company.
But at the end of the day, both sides are angry, and we've got to really fix the problems that both sides see so we can fix America. To ignore, the worst thing we can do is ignore either side. If you ignore that the people that truly believe what they believe, even if they believe that the election was stolen, we've got to continually improve our election process so people have more faith in it. And on the other side, we've got to stop yelling about, they're all crazy, because the election, in my opinion, was a legit election. but we've got to do better to prove, going forward, we shouldn't have ballots in boxes. There's got to be, if you could transfer $100 million in a wire to somebody for a construction project, you should be able to have a better system. So I think going forward, we need both sides to be listened to.
Alex will give you the final word on the subject, and then we'll move on to something better.
I'll close with my two least favorite words in the English dictionary are politics and busy.
Right.
Politics and what?
Busy. People don't come in my office and say, I know you're busy.
Don't you hate that?
Productive, value add, like just I don't use the word busy in my vocabulary. I eliminated it in college. And politics is,
I like that word because especially, when I was, just a manager or executive, I wasn't, no one ever said to me, hey, I know you're busy. Now, because you're seen as this, guy in the media, it's like, well, I didn't want to bother you. I didn't want to send you an email because you're busy. I'm like, I am no busier than anybody else. It's like you're doing me a disservice by saying I'm too busy to talk with you. I'll decide if I want to talk to you or not.
Yeah, right. So, Alex, your company manages 80-ish properties at this point or something like that. Forgive me if I don't know the exact number. But you've been very fortunate that you do have a lot of resort locations now. It seems to me, we were talking before we went on air about St. Pete seems to be one of the leading markets in the entire country because it's a great drive-to market. What are you experiencing right now with the properties that benchmark? Because we know those ski resorts are probably doing pretty well right about now as well.
Yeah. So throughout the year, throughout 2020, really since the pandemic began, I'll say I've never been happier to be less urban as a management company.
Right.
Those are the types of markets, the big, large global markets like New York, San Francisco, LA, Chicago.
The markets that every hotel company says they need to do, right?
Well, I've never been happier to not be in those markets as much as it is challenging for many of my colleagues who are. I would say we're fortunate that we are less urban. We are more drive to. We're about 9% international prior to the pandemic, so we weren't significantly reliant on global travel. We are 25% group across the portfolio. Now, some of our properties that are a higher portion of group business versus the general portfolio are suffering more, but we have 25% group. So we have been fortunate in that regard. Now, I tell people we were 52% down in 2020. And only other colleagues of mine in our industry who have more urban properties and are more reliant on business transient have said, that's not that bad.
Right. Yeah, it's always a matter of perspective, right, Alex?
So it definitely is about perspective, but to me, that's awful.
I was going to congratulate you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it. So only our industry can understand the relative nature of bad. But we gained 25 points of market share in the summer, mainly because we were focused on driving the experience and staying firm on rate. Our view was if people were going to go, they wanted to go somewhere that was going to be trusted and they were willing to pay for it. And we were right. And so we had generally good months in June, July, August, and parts of September. Now, we're back into the first quarter where resurgence has taken a lot of markets, and it's just unfortunate that we're in circumstances where we're looking at whether or not to close again or significantly limit operations again because it is such a difficult time.
Yeah. And you know what, real quick, I want to kind of make the comparison for a hotel as opposed to a restaurant and bar or a hotel with a lot of restaurant and bars is 52% in some hotels and some companies you can survive. And what I mean survive is literally your heartbeat is very slow, but you're alive. Restaurants, bars, or hotels with tremendous food and beverage, 52% is a death blow done. And I was just watching something or reading something in one of the magazines in New York. and they were saying goodbye to 500 establishments that are legendary establishments in New York City. 500, and those are just the legendary ones, the ones we know. Like there was probably 40% of them that I've gone to. And so when you go to a small business or you go to a restaurant, 51%, it's over for them. And in the hotels, if you run your hotels well, if you know going into a downturn, but you're in the right market, keep your rate. If you don't keep your rate, you're out of business. If you keep your rate, you'll be able to hang on. And in the hotel business, fortunately, our rate, there's a lot more upside with our rate than as opposed to a small retail store or a restaurant, because they're how much you can charge for a steak. A hotel, if there's a demand, some nights we charge 75, sometimes we charge 375, and that's just the nature of the business because it's an expensive business to run.
Right. So, Alex, did you have a hard time as the CEO saying I'm going to hold my rates, or was that really a no-brainer for you because you've been around long enough? You see the deleterious effects of dropping rate and how hard it is to regain. So how did you approach that particular topic?
Really, it was, I won't say a no-brainer. I mean, we all spent the time. Now we had a couple of months at the beginning of this where it was just do all we can to respond to the crisis. So from the beginning in March, it was we had a three-step plan. It was respond, recover, thrive.
Nice.
Quite repeated it numerous times in the last 10 months. And the first few months, it was pure response. How can we get the right policies, procedures, support out to our teams? Obviously, in at that period of time, we were shutting down operations nearly every property. And then it was time to look at how do we start the recovery. And from the beginning, our belief was, if people are going to go visit these properties because they're not traveling internationally, they're not getting on a plane, at least in relative terms, they want to go somewhere that they feel like they're comforted. And from the time we hit, early May through up to Memorial Day, we saw the results week to week, and we just kept on it throughout the rest of the summer, and it was good. So we were validated quite quickly in that strategy to just hold rate.
Right. And there's a whole system that goes into place, Glenn, when you're making that decision. You're looking at demand, you're looking at pacing. I mean, they're not making this just, let's hold rate. They're making it based on facts and based on numbers and based on reservations and based on the location. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Alex is doing that, but in my experience, a lot of hoteliers react via emotion. That the first thing that they do is want to cut rate because they think they're going to be able to get occupancy. Of course, Anthony, doing the show every day, we've learned that no matter how low you cut occupancy, you're not going to create any demand.
And that's why, in my company, Hospitality Success, what we concentrate on is teaching you the business, because that, Alex knows the business. So you got to learn the business. They're reacting because they don't know the business. Every decision is made by a spreadsheet. Almost every decision when it comes to rate is made by a spreadsheet. No one's waking up in the morning and say, I'm going to charge $553 today because I want to. A spreadsheet's telling you that. How you treat your employees, your mission statements, that's what you need to be creative about. But driving rate is pretty easy. Not pretty easy, but pretty scientific.
Right, Alex, I feel like this is a more onerous problem for select service hotels, not one that you necessarily have to feel about. I can't imagine the smart hoteliers at your competition at a resort down the road are just going to simply drop rate there. But let me ask you, Alex, you said you're trying to make things more comfortable for people and all of that. What are some of the things that we may not have been discussing here over the last 6 months that you think you've done that have helped make you connect better in an emotional context with your customers that's going to get them coming back time and time again once this crisis is over?
Well, look, Glenn, this goes to some of the things that Anthony said earlier about what's happening to our industry, what's happening to some of the places in New York. I think the simple fact is our industry, and I can't say everybody, not everybody is taking this as serious, but you cannot do what we do remotely, period. You have to show up in person. And so we've got to protect our team. Over the course of the entire time, we've had just probably about 550 COVID cases throughout our entire portfolio. That is materially less
How many employees do you have?
We had 10,000 to begin with. We're probably at about 4,500 to 5,000 now. But on a percentage basis, we are less than a third of the normal rate in general population. Now, to me, that says what we're doing is working. The safety protocols that we're putting in place, the distancing, the sanitation standards, simple mask wearing, right? I mean, all these things protect our employees, which is critical in my mind, and protects our guests. We don't have the option. We can't do what we do remotely. So we have to put these things in place. And we're in 28 different states.
Wow.
We can't afford to be more to be more focused on this in California versus in Texas. Now, yes, the local regulations and the local needs and the local population are different, but we have to follow those along with CDC guidelines. So to me, all of those things allow for there to be a certain comfort level that we're taking it serious and it's important to us. And to me, the results show, right? I mean,
I didn't realize you were so controversial. You think masks work, huh?
Right. I mean, just shocking. I mean,
yeah. Listen. All you got to do is look where we are today, with the guidance and the people that think that this was a joke, and either politically or from a health standpoint, just take this. Take a Polaroid of this moment, of the front pages, and put it away, and then look at it in 5 years. We're living through, and I am the last person to ever be, we're living through something bad. And listen, this country, there's been a lot of stuff in this country that we've lived through. But this particular standpoint, when there's box trucks, frozen box trucks outside putting bodies in, and you have the Capitol burning, this is a special time.
Yeah, that's definitely the word I would use for this time. But Alex, I don't know if you want to answer that, but then I've got another topic I want to talk about.
Look, the thing I'll say on masks is, to me, I don't have the option, right? If I am motivated by any one thing relative to my support of mask wearing, it is the benefit that it offers to our employees, to our business, period. I don't really care about myself. I'm not particularly focused on it for myself. I am focused on it for my team, for my employees, those who genuinely need all this support that the government has been messing around with for 7 months. Our industry simply needs to get past this. Now, the fortunate and unfortunate reality of the United States of America is we are not a compliant society. Right. We're entrepreneurs. We're very individualist. And by the way, that's so great for so many things, but it's not great when you're trying to solve a pandemic. So vaccine is going to be our savior. Compliance will not be our savior. And you know what? That's okay, because I'm willing to accept the fact that the entrepreneurship and individualism of the United States has so many wonderful things associated with it. And fortunately, we haven't faced that many pandemics that we've had to solve. So vaccine is going to be our solution. But along the way, we wouldn't have been able to make the progress we've made without masks in our work environment to keep our employees and our guests safe.
But I think you can have both, Alex. If you would have simply said that, and you were a leader in this country and you were in charge of this country, if you simply said that, that would have been enough for most people to comply, and the renegades are going to be the renegades. But when you give the people on the edge, they're not sure which way to go. That was the problem. So I don't think we're a country of non-compliance. I think we're a country of freedoms. Okay, freedoms and non-compliance are two different things, right? You have to comply with don't bring a gun to the bank with a mask on and point it at a teller. Comply with that. Right, but you're free to go in and deposit your money, and you're free for them, if they steal your money, to sue them. So I think that people are confused with both. What's a freedom and what's a compliant? You have to be compliant. Like, you're compliant. I go in the grocery store, I wear my mask. When I walk down the street and there's nobody around me, I don't wear my mask.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, Alex. Please start that over.
No. Very fair point, Anthony. It's a good way of changing that. I've said that phrase a number of times, and people smile. They're like, because that's the reality is, compliance is not our best character trait. But it really is a free society with a lot of freedoms and a lot of independence. And actually, we comply quite well when it's the norm, right? It's
freedoms come with
this new compliance for mask wearing. It's like, for Christ's sake, just put a mask on.
You know what? The more free, the more compliant you are, the freer you can be. And if you really break that down, it's really true.
Right. Interesting. All right, Alex, you're a smart entrepreneur. And one of the things with the entrepreneurial spirit that we've been talking about is not just how to make more money, but spend less money to make money. And we had here on December 8th, 2020, we had on the show John Bortz, who's the CEO of Pebblebrook Hotel Trust, who started up Curator Hotels, a collection of different hotels that are all banding together to find some sort of cost efficiencies and stuff. Alex, I was delighted to see that Benchmark Hotels is going to be participating in Curator Hotels as well, along with our friends at Viceroy Hotel Group, for example, and many other great companies. Tell us a little bit about what made you want to get engaged in this group and what are some of the benefits for you that you think are going to help lead you into later 2021 and beyond.
Well, Glenn, we've been partners and operators for Pebblebrook and John Bortz for a long time, from John's time at LaSalle and then also through Pebblebrook. So we've had a great relationship with John along the way. They've always been very entrepreneurial and very focused asset managers. And by the way, in a great partnership mentality. They very much want the best for each of their hotels. So they're constantly looking at, well, what are all these other management companies doing, and free to share among their portfolio what's been working best. I would say they have always been a owner that is the best at looking at best practices and finding ways to implement those across the portfolio, which included elements of what Curator was created upon, in that they looked at how do we leverage all of these management relationships and bring forth the best cost structure for each of our properties as a REIT and as an owner. So we've seen that behavior from them in being their partner for a long time. So when John and I sat down in January last year and just talked about the concept, to me, it was an immediate, count us in. How can we be helpful? John and I have talked about this is a bit of, we're building this car while we're driving it, has been the analogy that we've used because it is entrepreneurial. It's akin to a Vendra. When a Vendra was created as a GPO, a global purchasing organization by the major brands, decades ago, it's very much akin to that. We are one of the larger founding members. And so to us, it was, how can we gain scale benefits through pricing by cooperating with some of our competing properties or competing management companies all under this umbrella, while not taking away anything that is individualistic to each of us as management companies, but gives us all scale benefits that we can take advantage of. And there's no question in this environment, every owner is looking for cost savings in an environment that we're in right now. So while this was not an idea that came as a result of COVID, I think the value proposition is even much more relevant given the focus on cost savings right now.
Anthony?
I think it's a great program. I think Ray and John and that company is the best because they understand letting a management company manage, but they also understand you're in the trenches every day. And sometimes you don't see everything. And sometimes it's difficult to really, that's their job. Their job is they have the time and they have the resources to really zone in on those type of issues. And I think the reason that you're starting to see ownership and brands start to fight with each other a little bit more, especially coming out of COVID, is because they don't see, well, what's the next thing you can do for us? What else can you help us with? Marketing and there's another question I have for you in a second, sales. But so I think that they fill a really beautiful void. So Alex, a question I have for you is, a client of mine asked me this morning, well, there's two things. One, you said, I think somebody said St. Petersburg is a hot market right now, correct? Okay. And that's good because I'm working with a client right now to buy an older hotel in St. Petersburg. So Ross, if you're listening, I am a genius. I'm just kidding. I think it was Ross's idea.
He is a genius.
I think it was Ross's idea. I'm not sure. But anyway, number two, I'm getting a lot of questions about sales. I have a friend that will be on the show in a couple of weeks He's basically creating a new sales tool, and basically is taking sales away from management companies, and it's going to be a third-party sales component. There are some that have been out there. He's really going and investing and really doing it on a different level. But will you be moving sales to third parties, or do you still think that sales needs to be in-house?
Well, I think the industry has always had has certainly had a combination of all those, Anthony, over the course of the last couple of decades. So I see benefits in direct sales, which we are a heavy direct sales company. We're fortunate at the size that we're at to have enough distribution and relationships where that investment in direct sales makes sense. And that's particularly on the wholesale side and on the group side, where we have a history, we have a database, we have a lot of clients who use our properties across the whole portfolio. And as a management company, we are and have been focused on being more consumer forward than most. Now, that doesn't mean that our brand's on a building. That doesn't mean that we're trying to compete with the major franchises or brands. It just means as a management company, we do tell our consumer, we do tell our individual travelers, as well as our group guests and meeting planners, hey, this is who's behind these great properties in St. Pete or San Antonio or California. We tell them who we are. So we're very consumer forward in that focus. So we're definitely biased in our approach in that we are very direct sales focused. That said, we have a lot of great third-party relationships that expand client base, expand sales. Our favorite types of relationships are those that are based on production, right? Plain and simple. Bring us good business, bring us good relationships. We're going to treat you well. We treat all of our partners like family. They're invited to our conferences. They're invited to our events. They're treated like part of the company. Even Expedia, which is always one of those that the industry battles with. Look, I tell the former CEO of Expedia, who's a good friend, I said, look, our job is not to keep Expedia customers loyal to you. That's your job, right? I'm going to try to take as many customers as I can to be loyal to my portfolio, but that doesn't mean that I don't benefit from that third-party distribution, from that value proposition that a company in the space may take advantage of. I think that question to us, Anthony, is a little bit more challenging for something that's a startup, simply because we have the size and scale to have our own direct distribution and still believe there is ROI in that, because our focus is always ROI. How do we get the best return for those sales dollars?
Right. Quick show note. We're going to have Travel Zoo on the show later this week. As a matter of fact, if you're thinking about working with some of those third parties, some of the people on the show have had success with that. So we're going to feature them on Thursday. Anthony?
Yeah, I'd like to get Alex's opinion on Travel Zoo.
With them. So I'll reserve opinions.
What did you say? You work with them or you don't work with them?
I don't know if we do. Probably not a lot, simply because I don't hear about them very often. But I suspect that probably some of our properties do work with them.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to interviewing them with Glenn, because at first it was a product I was just completely almost offended by because of the rates, but it works, man. It works. It works when you need the business. That's for sure.
Alex, before we wrap up, I want to ask you. One of our frequent viewers is asking this question, and actually, I'm actually interested in this as well. Your father, Bert Cabañas, started this company. How did that begin? How did he say, I'm going to start a hospitality company, and then find such incredible success doing it?
Yeah. So my dad was a lifeguard at the Shelbourne Hotel on Miami Beach as his first job in our industry. As I mentioned before, both my parents were born in Cuba and came to the United States in the late 50s. So my dad grew up in the industry. He's a proud FIU Panther, Florida International University, and is a perfect rags to riches Horatio Alger story of growing up in our industry, from lifeguard to front desk to operations to conference services. He kind of did everything. And then worked for Sheraton at the Four Ambassadors, worked for Stouffer's Hotels, which was part of the frozen food company that then became, I think was bought by Marriott and became Renaissance. And then he also worked at Doral when it was a 5-star resort in the late 60s. So he always tells a story that his background before starting Benchmark was half branded large companies, Sheraton and Stouffer's, and then half independent small operations or high independent operations like Shelbourne and Doral. So when he started Benchmark, which was here in the Woodlands, Texas, just north of Houston, that was his vision. Was he wanted to create a company that had the sophistication, infrastructure, scale, credibility of a large organization, but at the same time behaved small, behaved independent. And so he was well before his time in believing that independence was a good thing and independence was competitive. So the business started in 1980, and really for the majority of our history, we were almost 100% independent. It's only been about the last 10, 12 years that we have 10, 11, 12 franchise hotels in our portfolio, where the industry has moved, in our belief, the industry has moved towards us in being more experiential, being more independent, being more flexible, not being so focused on standards and sameness, but focused on experience and uniqueness.
You know, when you told your story about your dad, I literally got emotional because that was a beautiful story. But what if you had to summarize your dad in a sentence? Like, what he has that immigrant spirit, he understands the hotel business. That's all great. But what makes him different than the other person that came with him that wasn't as successful? What was in his DNA and that wasn't maybe in somebody else's that was coming from Cuba?
Well, if I could pull it off the wall, Anthony, I'm looking at this picture over here, which is it's a quote from Calvin Coolidge called "Press On." If anybody searches "Press On" and Calvin Coolidge, you'll find the quote. I won't read it all, but the last part of it is persistence and determination. And my dad has said those words of attitude, determination, persistence since I was a kid, and I repeat them to my 2 sons. The rest of the quote is about genius is not it, talent is not it, education is not it. It is all attitude and determination. I did this is a funny joke about my dad. I did if anybody's watched the movie Couples Retreat, at the end, everybody gets a spirit animal. And I gave all of my partners involved in my business in front of a whole audience a spirit animal, and I gave my dad the ass, which is a donkey, and everybody laughed and thought it was hilarious. But the story of that, there's the quote right there. Well done, nice job pulling that up.
Thank you for doing it.
The story of that is my dad, carried the weight of this company for 35 years. He obsessed over culture, obsessed over people. He had a real strong back to carry that weight up a hill as an entrepreneur, as an independent, company, rejecting many offers along the way to sell to larger companies. And so, that spirit animal was much about that attitude and determination and backbone that my dad has always had. And very fortunate to have that DNA in myself, because I know it didn't come on my own. It came from the right genes in the family.
And also, that's the perfect spirit animal for someone like that, because I always say once a year, if you don't want to quit, I'm not pushing you hard enough. So I guarantee you, at least once a year, somebody walks out of his office or your office and go, "What an ass."
What a spirit animal. Alex, is there any other lesson that he gave you that rises above all of the others as your journey as a CEO in hospitality?
Yeah, that's okay. The good part about him, Anthony, is he's got incredible benevolence at the same time. And so he doesn't come across as the ass because he's got that incredible benevolence and charisma and character. Like one of my partners said, it's like Irish diplomacy. He can tell you to go to hell in a way that makes you look forward to the trip. Glenn, what was your question? I don't want to miss it.
Is there any other piece of advice that he gave you that might rise above all the others to be a CEO in the hospitality industry beyond the Calvin Coolidge quote and his point of view?
I'll do two. One was really a life lesson along the way, which was balance. Now, I do not like the phrase work-life balance. I would like to rid the dictionary and nomenclature of that, because to me it is life balance. And mine are five, right? Faith, family, friends, fitness, financial. Those are my 5 F's. That's how I balanced my life since college. So balance was always an important thing, and I also think balance applies to probably everything we just talked about, including all the political stuff we started with. Is right. You got balance, so that's important. And then I'll do a little more funny one, which is I made him read a book about 7-8 years ago, because he has a certain number of Bert-isms, things that he says, phrases that repeat, that are not in a management book. They're just the way that he kind of grew up repeating certain phrases. We've all got those. And one of his that has been my least favorite, but I've grown to appreciate, is let it take its course, which basically means kind of leave it alone. Like, let somebody else handle that for a while. Like, don't insert yourself. Don't try to solve the problem. Don't try to be the smartest guy in the room. Just if it's not that big of a deal, let someone else kind of manage it. And that one used to drive me nuts when I was young, because I always wanted to get on it real quick and make the thing fix and go solve the problem. And there's a lot of wisdom in just letting it take its course. So I've learned to appreciate my dad's least favorite quote.
Alex, it's funny you say that, because I think you and I are similar in a lot of ways. And that is one of my least favorite quotes. And I actually learned from friend Leo Rossi, who I mentioned from time to time on the show, my dearest friend in the world. He's an actor, producer guy. And I just got Hotel Impossible. And the first day on set was an absolute crap show, just absolute disaster. No one knew what they was doing. I'm sitting in the corner not knowing like how to control these people. I know how to run a hotel. I know how to control and manage a staff, but like, I don't know what to do. So I call him up and I'm telling him, and I'm almost in tears. And he said, this is exactly what he said. He said, when they put the camera on you, do your best and sit down. Let it take its course. They will all blow themselves up. If you speak right now, you have zero experience in production. You have zero experience on set. You will take the fall for it. I shut up for a couple of days. It was painful as hell. They went back. They saw what was on screen. It was terrible. Not I was terrible, but what they were pushing was terrible. And it didn't work. And basically everybody that was the problem got fired. And then I had a lot more control at that point, because I realized what I wouldn't. But when he said that, those were the greatest words that he could have said to me, is let it take its course. And I'm telling you, I was fighting with myself, physically pushing myself around, saying, stop, don't do it. Just listen to Leo. And I did, because he spent thousands of hours on sets around, the biggest A-list celebrities, from Jodie Foster to Robert De Niro. So if he's telling me what to do, I got to listen to him. So great advice.
Alex?
Yeah,
well, there's probably many more Glenns, so I appreciate whoever it was that asked the question.
But isn't it really the trick, or isn't it the real key, is knowing when to listen to what quote? Because there's times where you have to listen to the press on quote when the let it be quote is right there. But there's an instinct that comes along and said, no, this is my press on day. And then the next day you're like, you want to press on. You're like, no, this is my leave it alone day. And so that's really, if anybody says the secret is know what quote or what thing to do at what moment in time.
Yeah, I think probably many of us, I'm 45, be 45, and my dad's 72. I suspect many generational leaders or generational employees could probably relate to, my dad was a gut feel guy. Yep. He would always say, trust your gut, or, what does your gut tell you? That's always a question he would ask me. And I'm an analytic. I didn't grow up in the industry like he did. I had the benefit of a much different educational benefit than he did because of his life His father passed away when he was 7. He immigrated to the U.S. not speaking the language. I think it took him 7 years to finish at FIU because he was working at the same time. I think he got an honor. I think he was made an honorary professor at FIU before he even got his degree because he had worked so much in hospitality. So I was analytic. I was a lot of head, and I'm still more head, but I've learned to become half head and half heart, or half heart / gut. Is how do people feel? How are people managing their emotions? Really appreciating the benefit of what we do in our business beyond the numbers, and that's a lot of his influence. And that comment, Anthony, to me is, when do you pay attention to the quote, or when do you make that decision? That is a combination of the analytics, right? The logic and the heart, right? How do I ultimately feel about that choice, right? Or decision, or how quickly does it need to be? It's a combination of those, and that is a muscle that is exercised every day, right, as a leader.
But it also comes down to, at the end of the day, the reason your father was successful, the reason your company is successful, is because the people that you entrust with running your company day to day trust you. And that's it. So whether you're more analytical or more from the heart, or you're an immigrant, or you have a better education than your dad after having to work through 7 years of college, it comes down to, he can be relied upon. And I try to teach my children that every day. It's like, listen, somebody can be smarter than somebody can work harder. But at the end of the day, when you go into work, maybe they're putting more on your plate because they trust you. And that, to me, is something, when the trust is gone, it doesn't matter how smart you are or how much heart you have. And that's why your company's so successful, because people trust you.
Well, and I'll say, Anthony, and to everything that we've talked about and how our company's managed through the last 10 months, a phrase I've repeated is, I couldn't imagine being in the foxhole with any better organization and better team. The sanity that's come with that, the humor and the laughter, the support, not the hugs. I'm a big hugger. I've missed that a lot. The crying along the way, the sorrow and challenges we faced of employees, lives lost. Even social injustice, add that to the middle of all of this. And what's been happening even the last 72 hours is what an amazing organization and team to be a part of, to manage through crisis. I said, our team said from the beginning, crises, they stretch everything. They will stretch the balance sheet. They will stretch the P&L. They will stretch alignment. They will stretch leadership. They will stress everything. And to me, probably the greatest testament to success in this pandemic and in this last 12 months has been that our culture and our company and all those things that made us great, which, by the way, in February of this year was our peak of all peaks in 42 years, right? We had record everything in 2019. So to go from record everything to the bottom of where we are now, and we showed up in that crisis. So I couldn't be more proud of the organization, because it was not easy, right? And I can only imagine what it's like. And I know lots of friends who did not have alignment, did not.
Your constitution was strong. Just the way you can take what you've done in your company for the 40 something years, and what your father built, what you built, what your teams have built, and you can look at it and you can say, you can compare it to our constitution, and you can say the reason our country survived that 24-hour period, okay, it's because they had a strong constitution. Your company has a strong constitution. That's why.
Yep. Alex, this has been absolutely awesome. You have earned a chance of a shameless plug. Take it at your will. How can we find you? How can we learn more about Benchmark? Anything you want to say? The forum's all yours.
Well, Glenn and Anthony, thank you guys for the time. Apologies for all the technology glitches, but hey, this is the reality of this environment. So I look forward to gladly promoting in-person togetherness when we're out of this. And our company does that quite well. My plug for what we do, and frankly for our entire industry, is a phrase I've repeated since March, and that our team has repeated since March, is over the course of the last 10 months, there has been many people on the front lines of this pandemic. Anybody in the medical profession, certainly the world of teaching and teachers who have had to dramatically interrupt their lives. And there is question that our industry has had to take a tremendous hit. And that is hard for the restaurant and hospitality industry, no question. But soon, very soon, it will be our time to be on the front lines, to heal the world with hospitality. We will get a chance. We will get past this. Soon there will be the right amount of sentiment and science to get us past this. I don't think it's all going to be science. It's going to be sentiment and science that is going to get us past this. And I'm at least plugging for Memorial Day weekend. Now, I hope it comes sooner, but I want to be realistic that come Memorial Day weekend, there's a certain amount of science and sentiment that gets us past this, where we can heal the world with hospitality across the globe throughout the summer, going into the fall season, budgeting, planning, businesses, sales trips, all those kinds of things that we all missed. And so I'll plug that everybody listening ought to get back out on the road when that time comes, when we know it's safe, because our industry needs that help, and we'll be there to support it.
Beautiful. Anthony?
When you do go back on the road, everyone, increase your tips to your housekeepers. Thank you.
Right. Alex, thank you so much for being here. Now, we had some pictures loaded of some of your hotels, but this conversation was just too good to stop it to show some of those. So next time, we'll have to have you back soon enough so we could do more of a visual approach to what Benchmark does at all of their properties. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun. I watched other ones, and this is exactly, I mean, other than technology, this was just fun. This is a great format, and appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And hopefully your expectations of coming in, we've blown them out of the water where you had no idea where we were going. That's exactly where we want you.
Very good.
Thanks, Alex.
And you wore the purple tie, Anthony, so I'm good with that.
Right, my friend. Hey, and when we see each other, it looks like you're a much taller guy than me. Just don't pick me up, okay?
We got the same haircut.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Take care. Have a great afternoon. Man, that was refreshing. And I've got to say, I'm so thrilled that we finally got Alex on. I've been trying for so a long time. So that was a very positive moment for me as well.
Well, he lives, his 5, whatever words they were, family, finance, whatever it was, and he lives them. And I think, in bringing your personal brand, forget about his company. When you're building your personal brand, you got to live by a code. You've got to live by a code, your own code that you're willing to die for. And when they go through these challenges as a company, that code, that the benchmark, is what becomes their really go-to. Because how do you go from the biggest peak to the lowest valley and still survive? Right. And it's because you have a constitution, you have a word, you have words, and you have quotes, and you have family, and you have people around you that believe in your vision. And that's how you get through.
And Alex is still backstage here. Is nice enough to type it in for us. Faith, family, friends, fitness, financial, in that order specifically.
Right. And there's, if it's in that order, but every single one of those, I would imagine, Alex, bring Alex back in. I would imagine, see, Alex, you never know what to expect. When you said those, I can't imagine they could be in order, but each one is tied very closely to the other, right? Taking care of your family financially. It's like it's so I would imagine it is in order, but what I want people to understand is it's all tied together very closely. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, no question. To me, I came up with those words in college, and I'm a firm believer in prioritization, and that provides balance. It provides focus. You want to know what's important to somebody. Look at where they spend their time and money, and so to me, they are in that order, but they are very closely aligned. And that I'm a firm believer in everything about my faith and certainly my family. I am a believer that a small amount of close friends are more important than a bunch of shallow friends, which is not necessarily social media friendly, but I don't really care. And fitness, both mental, emotional, and physical, are all important. And you wrap that up, and if you do all those things right, and no matter what business you're in, your finances are going to work, right? So the money is a byproduct of all four of the first four things that I do, right? The bank account is irrelevant if I am lost in any of those other four areas. And I find that when I'm clear in all those other four areas, the bank account is much more improved.
Right.
And so it works out. They all support each other.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Alex. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. And Glenn, what I love what he just said is because when you look at him as a business person and as a family man and owning a big company, someone can look at that and say, well, that's fine, but you're financially probably okay. But I talk to housekeepers that are literally just putting bread and milk on the table, and they're the same mindset. Even though they're just barely making it, they go to church, they take care of their family, they make meals, they have close friends, they laugh, they have hobbies, and they understand the spirit of those 5 words. And so depending on the spectrum you're on, it doesn't matter. You have to have your own system of beliefs or you will get lost. It will be easy for someone to pull you off that system of beliefs.
Right. Yeah, absolutely true, which is why my belief system is everything in moderation, including moderation from time to time. Anthony, tomorrow we've got a great show because we're going to be talking to a company called Bright Support Services, and they're all about helping you out there find ways to lower your expenses, such as through property taxes. We know your hotel valuations has changed. We're going to give you guys out there a guide on how to make sure that your taxes are less onerous in that way.
I'm really looking forward to that because when I heard about them, I was like, that is what owners need right now. They really need some guidance. Listen, a lot of owners are tax lawyers. A lot of owners know this better than most, but most don't. And so I really look forward to that.
Yep. Excellent. Anthony, any word that you want to get out about anything that you might be doing on Thursdays? I don't know what's going on with
No, we're like a duck right now.
Okay.
Our feet are moving.
All right. Excellent. I know Anthony's doing a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes, and we'll make sure when he's up to something new, we're going to get that right.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm going into a shell. I will come back out, and there'll be a lot of things on the plate.
Excellent. I can't wait until you are unshelled and able to enjoy the fruits of your growth.
Well, you know what? There's times I read a quote a couple weeks ago. It's like there are times to go away and be quiet. And that doesn't mean I go away on the podcast, but that means right now there's just a lot, and you have to focus. And it's another thing that he was talking about. It's focus. I tend to work on a lot of things at once. And then I've decided what brings me real joy, what really brings me joy. And I'll tell you the 2 things outside of my family, the 2 things that bring me joy is helping people in our industry and running hotels. That's it. Speaking to people in our industry and running hotels. And I did a lot of soul searching on, what do I want to do? What do people think I should be doing? And what do I really want to do? And thank God I'm in a position that I have a choice. And those are the 2 things I want to do. I want to continue to do what I'm doing with keynotes and this show and speaking and helping and teaching. That is a priority. And also running and developing and owning hotels. That is also a priority. So those are my 2 priorities going forward.
Excellent. Well, I've got a bunch more stuff that's going to be coming down the pike, and we'll keep you guys real posted on what Anthony and I are doing in the future. Thanks so much. And one thing that you can do is be sure that you subscribe to our audio-only version of this show, because we know you're out there exercising. We know you're doing that important F of fitness. Why not take us along with you? Or if you're walking the dog or on your commute, go check out on iTunes, Google Play, and wherever you find podcasts such as Stitcher and iHeartRadio and all those things. Checking in with Anthony and Glenn is how you find that particular show. And subscribe to our weekly newsletter by texting the word hotel to 66866. Anthony, any final words before we wrap up this extended size show today?
Thank you, David, our producer, for doing a great job today. And we'll see you tomorrow, everyone.
Great, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back tomorrow. Remember,